I'm a college student who's trying to start an indie game studio, and I'm making my first 3D game with my roommate. We had this awesome update planned, but with school and life getting in the way, as well as our general lack of experience, it's been really hard to finish it. But we actually managed to finish our game in the last couple weeks. Finishing a game is hard, but doable. In this video, I'm going to talk about how we finished Barrel Roller and how you can play it now too. If you've always dreamt about making your own video game, or if you're currently doing it, hopefully this video can provide some inspiration to chase that dream. Now, I mentioned that we're chasing our dream of starting an indie game studio. I talked about that on this channel several months ago when I made the video about quitting my dream game. But for the first time since then, I want to share a little bit more information about what we plan to do. Our main focus is creating timeless, fun-centered games that uplift, unite, and inspire people. The video game industry is oversaturated with lifeless AAA games, and I've seen the most beauty and innovation coming from indie studios. I do believe that video games have the potential to be a work of art, and they don't have to be just a waste of time. Now, obviously we're just starting out. I'm by no means a professional artist, and Adam is still learning the ropes with Godot. So our plan to eventually make these kind of games is to start by making as many small games as possible. So right now on this channel, my focus is sharing our progress learning game development and to take you along on our journey of creating small games and eventually working our way up to making masterpieces. We also finally settled on a name for our indie game studio. We're thinking about calling it Stump Games. So if you want to follow along our journey, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you can see more of what we create. Now, let's talk about Barrel Roller and the art of finishing a game. Why is finishing a game so hard? Even in small games, and maybe even especially in small games, scope creep or the desire to keep adding new features to the game is a game developer's worst enemy. The problem is, for Barrel Roller, the first version we released only had an infinite runner where you could collect coins. There was nothing you could actually do with those coins. In a game like this, I feel like replayability comes down to having interesting content to spice up your runs and provide more longer-term goals than just getting a high score. So we felt like we needed to add a shop for the game to feel complete. In the most recent videos, I've been talking about how difficult it is to actually implement a shop, so if you're interested in seeing how we did that, make sure to go check those out. Going forward, our plan is to participate in more game jams to limit ourselves on time. We also want to make sure that getting playtest feedback is a core part of our game development process. Making games pretty quickly is good for that, because you can get people to play your games really frequently. I'm a big believer that getting lots of different playtesters is key to making a game as fun as it can be. So by releasing our game a few months ago and announcing it here on YouTube, we've gotten a lot of playtesters and a lot of feedback. On top of all the content additions, we've been hard at work applying your feedback, which has not been easy. Game developers are notorious for ignoring their community. We're trying not to follow that pattern. So here's some comments with really common feedback we saw and how we ended up fixing it or implementing that advice. I like the game, but it would be nice to have a restart key on PC to not have to use your mouse pointer. That was a good point. We designed the game kind of for mobile, but on PC you had to use your mouse in the menu, but then you use the arrow keys when you're actually playing. So we ended up adding a key that you can use to restart the game so that you don't have to move your mouse every time. My only complaint with the game is I feel like the collisions are a bit dodgy. We spent a lot of time fine-tuning the collisions and making sure that things are more visually clear so that's less frustrating. There's kind of a bug where you can just stay off screen and you can't really die because nothing can kill you. In the previous version of the game, the screen wrapping wasn't actually complete. You would basically just teleport from one side of the screen to the other, so it was correct that you could kind of just hide in that little middle area. In the current version, the screen wrapping is completely fixed, so if you try to hide in the side of the screen, you'll just get hit by obstacles on both sides. I found myself not understanding the controls at first, but even after I got them, it was way hard to move the little guy where I wanted. I think it's a bit too hard. If you start, so a few less spawns would be great to get used to the controls and stuff. We noticed this as well when people were playing. It's really rough getting started because it's a little bit hard to understand the controls. So we made it so that the obstacles ramp up in difficulty over time. At the start of the game, the obstacles are very slow to give you time to figure out the controls and get the hang of things before the difficulty ramps up. There was a lot of lag in the first 15 seconds of loading up the game. Adam actually ended up just remaking the entire game from scratch because of the lag spikes, and he just wanted to make it better from the ground up. Good news is the lag spikes are fixed now though. Kind of wish there was sort of a basic menu in the game, like just a pause button or something. Obviously that would be nice, so we did add a menu, and in addition to that we added the shop and the closet, so there's a lot more UI that you can interact with now. So after getting all of that implemented, the next big thing that proved to be a challenge was getting skins into the game. But before I get too deep into that, I want to talk about the daily practice of making art as a way of improving your craft. Today's video is sponsored by Skillshare, which is the largest online learning community for creatives with a huge variety of creative topics. I love making art, but I definitely lack a lot of fundamental skills. I've been following along with this class on figure drawing to improve my basic understanding of anatomy and support my artistic growth. Skillshare has thousands of classes in countless categories ranging from beginner to advanced. Specifically for game development, they've got classes on Blender, Godot, or any other game engine you could want to learn. I've been using Skillshare personally for several months now, and I'm glad they're sponsoring this because I think it's awesome. Getting into a daily habit of creativity is the best way to improve your craft, and Skillshare is an amazing resource to support this goal. So the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare so you can get started today. Thank you Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Now back to the video. Learning how to get the skins that I had modeled in Blender into Godot was a huge learning process for us, and we still haven't even completely figured it out. First of all, I had a lot of really weird issues with the origin points in Blender. The origin point is basically the pivot around which an object rotates, scales, and moves. By default, it's at the center of the object, but you can change it to control how the transformations work. You can even rotate and scale the origin point, which leads to some pretty wacky stuff, especially when paired with a rig and with animations. I learned that you can replace a mesh with another mesh in the same project. When I swapped the mesh on the animated model with the new skin, they would be rotated and scaled super weirdly because of these origin points being scaled weirdly. So I normalized all the origin points for the skins, and then when I swapped the mesh, it would change seamlessly. I will say it was really cool to see all the new skins that I had modeled in action. We actually just ended up giving up trying to figure out mesh swapping in Godot because it was giving us way too many problems. What I ended up doing is just swapping out the meshes in Blender and then exporting each animation independently. For now that works because we don't have too many skins, but in the future hopefully we can figure out a better way to do that. If anyone has experience with mesh swapping in Godot, we would love some feedback, so comment down below. One of the last things we had to do to make the project feel a lot more fleshed out, especially with all the new menu and shop stuff, was adding sound effects. I ended up using some of my old sound files that I made when I was working on Coco the Last Leaf, which was my last big indie game project. I ended up making a lot of random sound effects, so I've actually been able to use those sound effects in future games a lot. For other sounds though, I ended up using freesounds.org, which is such a good website, highly recommend. You can find some pretty goofy stuff on there sometimes though. Poof! You gotta be careful. And boom, now that our game is finished, I decided to give it to some of my friends to play to see who could get the highest score.
I can accept that. That's a respectable score.
How do you feel?
I worked hard for that, you know, I really put in the hours and the time.
563.
Not bad.
Yeah! Look at that!
So without further ado, I'd love for you to try out our goofy infinite runner barrel roller. It's on itch.io. Comment below your high score or join my Discord server and send a screenshot. The winner gets a kiss on the forehead. If you like this kind of stuff and you want to see what my day looks like as a college student balancing being an indie game dev, make sure to go check out my last video. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you for supporting Barrel Roller. I'll see you guys with our next game project.